Everyone knows the Munsters as TV's most lovable monster family. But in 1965, one episode went too far. From illegal props to life-threatening stunts, what happened was so shocking, the footage was locked away forever. Now, after decades of silence, we're uncovering why this lost episode never aired, and why the cast refused to talk about it. The idea for the Munsters began in the 1940s with animator Bob Clampett, best known for Looney Tunes, but it never took off. The concept resurfaced in the early 1960s when comedy writers Alan Burns and Chris Hayward, inspired by Charles Addams' New Yorker cartoons, pitched a monster family sitcom. Instead of creating new characters, they turned to Universal Studios, which owned legendary monsters like Frankenstein and Dracula. This decision shaped the show. Herman Munster became a Frankenstein-inspired father with a goofy charm, while Grandpa was a comedic take on Count Dracula. Living in a decrepit mansion, the family saw themselves as normal, but their neighbors were terrified. Writers Norm Liebman and Ed Haas developed the first pilot, Love Thy Monster, setting the show's satirical tone. The timing was perfect. Classic monster films were making a comeback, and the Munsters blended horror with humor. Because Universal owned the original monster designs, they could use them freely, giving the show an authentic Hollywood look. Legendary makeup artist Bud Westmore ensured the characters looked like real movie monsters while staying expressive enough for comedy. Unlike other shows that mocked horror, the Munsters celebrated it. The series satirized suburban life, showing a monstrous family dealing with everyday problems, and poked fun at traditional sitcoms. In one episode, Lily urges Herman to have a heartfelt father-son talk, but his advice is so absurd it turns into a joke, twisting familiar sitcom cliches into fresh comedy. At the show's heart were Fred Gwynne and Al Lewis, who played Herman and Grandpa. Their chemistry was undeniable, dating back to their roles as mismatched cops in Car 54, Where Are You? More than co-stars, they were close friends, making the Munster family feel real. When casting began, producers immediately chose them. Transforming Gwynne into Herman wasn't easy. His costume added 40 to 50 pounds, and the heat from studio lights was brutal. He once lost 10 pounds in a single day. Yet, his deep voice, goofy laugh, and childlike innocence made Herman one of TV's most beloved characters. Off-screen, his friendship with Lewis lasted long after the show ended. Not every casting decision was as smooth. Originally, the Munster matriarch was named Phoebe, played by Joan Marshall, but she resembled Morticia Addams too much, so producers replaced her with Lily Munster. They cast Yvonne De Carlo, a dramatic actress known for the Ten Commandments. Gwynne and Lewis doubted her comedic skills, but she proved them wrong. Playing Lily as a gothic 1950s housewife, her elegance balanced Herman's goofiness, making her an essential part of the show. Meanwhile, the search for Eddie Munster wasn't as simple. Butch Patrick, who eventually landed the role, wasn't the first choice. In the original unaired pilot, Eddie Munster was played by Nate Happy Durman. His version of Eddie was a bratty troublemaker, which didn't fit the show's light-hearted feel. When Butch Patrick stepped in, he made Eddie mischievous but lovable, helping the character connect with young viewers. For Patrick, the Munsters was more than just a job. It was a defining part of his childhood. He has fondly recalled learning from Fred Gwynne and Al Lewis and cherishing the fun they had on set. Marilyn Munster also went through a major casting change. Beverly Owen originally played her, but left after 13 episodes. She never wanted the role and was tricked into signing a contract, often leaving the set in tears. When she finally broke free, producers brought in Pat Priest, who fit in perfectly. Marilyn, the only normal Munster, never saw her family as strange, which led to great comedic moments. Over time, Priest formed strong bonds with her co-stars, making her version of Marilyn just as iconic. The Munster house, 1313 Mockingbird Lane, was more than just a set. It was a character itself. Inspired by Victorian mansions, its eerie charm blended horror with humor. The exterior was a modified house on Universal's backlot, while the detailed interior was built on a soundstage. The grand staircase, dusty chandeliers, and basement laboratory added to the show's comedy, with Herman crashing through walls and Grandpa's experiments constantly going wrong. Many design elements paid homage to Universal's classic horror films, giving the home a perfect mix of spooky and silly. Behind the scenes, filming wasn't easy. The cast endured long makeup sessions, heavy costumes, and sweltering studio lights. Fred Gwynne's Herman Munster suit weighed up to 50 pounds, making movement a challenge. Yvonne de Carlo's elegant dresses, while stunning, were difficult to maneuver in. One of the wildest pieces of Munster's history is Dragula, a hot rod built from an actual fiberglass coffin. It was created for the 1965 episode Hot Rod Herman, in which Grandpa Munster builds a dragster to win back the family car. However, buying a coffin wasn't simple. California law required a death certificate to purchase one, so the team had to strike a secret deal with a funeral home. They left the coffin outside the back door at night, no questions asked. Once acquired, the rest of the car came together fast. A Ford V8 engine gave it 350 horsepower. The exhaust pipes resembled a church organ, and each hubcap featured a silver spider. Dragula later appeared in the Munster Go Home movie, with multiple versions built over the years, some ending up in museums, others in private collections. Then there was the Munster coach, designed by George Barris, the same man behind the 1960s Batmobile. Built from three 1926 Model T bodies, stretched over a 1927 chassis, the car became just as famous as the show, appearing in parades, exhibitions, and private collections. Even small details had unexpected challenges. Al Lewis's original Grandpa Munster prosthetic nose was so long that every time he drank coffee, it became soggy and lost its shape. After constant frustration, the makeup team finally shortened it. The unaired pilot, My Fair Munster, was filmed in late 1963 to pitch the series. Unlike the show's final version, it was shot in color since TV networks were moving in that direction. However, once the show was picked up, producers opted for black and white. It saved money and gave the Munsters a classic horror movie aesthetic. The Munsters pilot was filmed on Universal's backlot, using the same streets as Leave It to Beaver, creating a stark contrast between suburbia and a monstrous family. Written by Norm Liebman and Ed Haas, and directed by Norman Abbott, the pilot had the right foundation, but saw key changes before the series launched. Joan Marshall originally played Phoebe Munster, later renamed Lily, and recast with Yvonne de Carlo to be less like Morticia Addams. Eddie Munster also changed. Nate Derman's version was too aggressive, leading to Butch Patrick's more lovable portrayal. With these final adjustments, The Munsters was ready to become one of TV's most beloved sitcoms. The original unaired pilot of The Munsters featured Nate "Happy" Derman as Eddie, portraying him as a bratty troublemaker. Despite its short run, The Munsters remains a cultural icon, proving that even monsters can be the most wholesome family on TV. The Munsters remains a pop culture staple, inspiring Stranger Things' Eddie Munson and countless theme song covers. Its iconic characters, like Fred Gwynne's lovable Herman and Al Lewis's mischievous Grandpa, helped shape sitcoms blending comedy with the supernatural. Airing alongside The Addams Family, it took a more light-hearted approach, influencing shows like What We Do in the Shadows. More than just a monster comedy, the Munsters satirized the American family ideal, proving that even the most unconventional families can be timeless.